Hi, my name is Martin Fahn, and I'm a field CTO here with CalLogic Software. And in this video, we're going to be delving into a more advanced topic surrounding CloudCasa, which is using the CloudCasa REST API. This is probably going to be of more benefit to those power users looking to do more with CloudCasa through their own scripts run through the command line or workflow automation tools to provision their environments. The point being is that by using the REST API, users can have as minimal interaction with the GUI as possible. In this video, we're going to go through a pretty simple example of executing an existing backup job through the REST API, which will require us to do certain tasks like querying for job IDs and then invoking an action against that job ID through an HTTP request. The first thing to note is that CloudCasa is built entirely on top of a REST framework. So as you're interacting with the UI, this corresponds to an HTTP request to an endpoint on the CloudCasa server, which will fulfill that request and return values in a JSON format, as you can see here in my developer console for the web browser that I have open. We can generate these same API requests without having to click around the CloudCasa UI. The first thing that you'll need to do is generate an API key or authorization token. So every time you log into CloudCasa, your user session is going to be assigned a random authorization token after a successful login, from which all requests that you make through the GUI is going to reference. And this token will expire after a period of inactivity or whenever you log out. So what we want to do is we want to create a non-expiring token. And this is a one-time operation that we'll need to perform through the GUI. To do so, I'll click on the Configuration tab. And here under the User Management section, I'll click on API Keys. Just note that generating API keys is only available for premium CloudCasa accounts. This option is not available using the free account tier. So if you see a great option here, you can either upgrade your account or you can contact us and we'll send you a premium trial, which will also unlock other premium options within CloudCasa that you can test as well. But creating a key is just as simple as selecting new API key, giving it a name. Here I'll call it REST Demo, and then assign it a role. In this case, I have two roles available, admin and user. So I'll create this key with admin permissions and click generate. Once this key is created, it's going to display just this one time, and I'm masking my key for obvious reasons here, as it is a non-expiring key giving admin privileges into my CloudCasa account. So be sure you copy the key that you generate and keep it in a safe place, because if you ever lose it, you'll need to regenerate the new API key again. And you can have up to 10 API keys for various integrations, so keep that in mind as well. The next thing that we'll need is a REST client from which to invoke our request. And here I'll be using Postman as my REST client since it has a GUI and it's easier to show, but you could also use a command line interface like curl if you desire. We have our REST API documented in a reference guide, which can be accessed via docs.cloudcasa.io/API guide. Since we want to start an existing job via the API, we'll go into the section surrounding kube cluster and snapshot backups. And here you can see some example requests of defining a backup and what the body of that request might look like. I'll scroll down to running a backup job where I can see the endpoint as /API/v1 kube backups ID action run. But since I don't have a job ID in this case, I'll scroll down a bit further. And here I see that I can get a list of all job IDs using a GET request to the /API/v1/kube backups endpoint. So I'll jump back to Postman to create my request. So I'll add a new request and call this get jobs with a method of type get, and here I'll paste the endpoint and prefix that with https API cloudcasa.io. Now for my API key, I'll want to input that API key as a bearer token under the authorization tab. So under authorization, I can select bearer token as a type and copy and paste the API key that I generated in the last step here. So here I'll click send, and CloudCasa will send me a response in a JSON format of an array of job objects with one of the key value pairs of each object being the job ID. So I can use this job ID to create my start job request. With the job ID, I'll jump back to the reference guide and look up the details of the request to start my job. So this is going to be a post request to the Kube Backups endpoint with the associated job ID, along with a body that I will need to send along with my request. So let's jump back to Postman, and I'll create a new request here, and we'll call this run job. And this will be a request of type post along with the endpoint prefix with the api.cloudcasa.io, and I'll ensure my authorization has been set with the correct bearer token and API key request, and then just grab the job ID from the previous output that I want to use to start this job and paste that into my URL request. So at this point I can click send, but I also know that I do need a body for my request. So jumping back to the API guide, I can copy this example body within my request and then paste those into the body of my request in Postman. So I'll select raw here and make sure that the format of this body is in JSON format. So now at this point I can click send, and then you can see that my request has been submitted. So jumping back to my UI, I can go back to the dashboard and see that a start job request has been initiated from the dashboard, and that job ID is now within a running state. So the benefit of leveraging the REST API will come through invocation of these HTTP requests through the command line. And one of the nice things about Postman is that you can export the curl command equivalent of this request and then run it directly from a command line. Over on the right-hand side here, you'll notice the code tag brackets from which I can get the equivalent curl command along with the arguments that I can use to run from the command line. So I'll go ahead and copy this command and then paste this into my Linux terminal here. And you can see that I'm just seeing the raw output, but I can use other tools like JQ to pretty print this into a more human readable format, for example, and even query further. For example, if I want to get all the job IDs from the items array, here I can simply add those arguments into my JQ parameters listed here, and now see a list of all job IDs, which I can iterate over through a for loop or a while loop in a shell or Python script that I can then define conditional logic in and construct REST API requests to perform start job requests on each job object defined in my CloudCasa account. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to leverage the CloudCasa REST APIs, and I hope you can see its potential beyond this simple example to something from which you can automate your entire environment and data protection workflows. So if you're already using workflow automation to spin up your clusters and storage, you can then use the CloudCasa REST APIs to register your cluster, install an agent, define a backup policy, attach it to a schedule, and then when you're ready to tear down your cluster, you can delete those policies all without having to enter into the CloudCasa UI. As always, if you do have any questions or would like to have a more detailed discussion on this topic, feel free to visit our website at cloudcasa.io or you can contact us directly at info@calogicsoftware.com. I've also pasted my email address in the description below, so feel free to reach out to me if you have any suggestions or ideas that you would like to use through the REST API. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.